Hi there. I
Hey,
want to greet Professor Rhonda Breed and the classes at Martin Community College. My name is Peg Morrison. I'm the Director of Programs with NAMI North Carolina, and Brian Cardoza has asked me to kind of facilitate him telling his story. So I want to thank you in advance, Brian, for your courage and for your willingness to be here and share for the benefit of others, maybe who have been through some things or who need to learn from others who have been through some things.
my pleasure. I'm always hesitant to accept the courage moniker, but I understand why people say it. But I'm always hesitant about that because it's like it's what I'm doing to survive. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't think that's courageous to want to live. You know what I mean? Like so, but I accept it because I know people mean it in a very heartfelt and honest way. So
Yeah, that's right. I hear what you're saying. We all have that survival instinct. I think, well, we'll get into it more later, but I think you've done well at surviving and thriving. Um, Quick note about NAMI, since that's the message behind me, and I'm the Director of Programs for NAMI North Carolina. As I said, NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are a nonprofit grassroots organization that focuses on mental health all across the nation. We're the largest grassroots organization with that focus. And we offer free classes, support groups, and presentations all around North Carolina. We would love to grow in the eastern part of the state. So if you'd like to have a NAMI on campus, or you'd like to start a NAMI, get trained in leading a support group, I would absolutely love to hear from you. And again, my name is Peg Morrison. I'm with NAMI North Carolina. You can Google me or email me at pmorrison@naminc.org. So that's me and that's NAMI. So let's get back to the important stuff here. And Brian, if you could maybe tell us your recovery story in a nutshell.
it would be a very large nut. That'd be a gigantic nut. Um, so my story starts when I was 6, when my father left and my mother had a psychotic break, and she blamed me directly for my father leaving. I have an older brother from the same father, same nuclear family, and during that time, she pretty much convinced my brother that the reason why his dad left was because I failed the family. So later on that summer, when my brother had an opportunity to enact some revenge, he sold me to his best friend, and I was sold into sex trafficking. And then during that time, I'm getting physically and emotionally abused from 6 to 12 pretty severely, and then from 12 to 15 pretty severely just mental abuse. And I say just mental abuse. I don't mean it as in like, oh, you're mean. I mean it like I always put it in the meat packing industry's way. Like, no, this was triple A. Like, this was the best stuff you can find on the planet kind of mental abuse. And that was what I had to suffer for 3 years. And then I was thrown out December 14th, 1989. Slept in a car in the middle of winter in Anchorage, Alaska, and almost froze to death. I developed a lot of terrible coping skills, a lot of mental health issues from that. But those are things that I now today can say are always in my rear view mirror because I can always see them, but they're behind me. And so I don't want anybody ever to think that this is something that one day you just wake up and you're like, nope, never happened. It always happened. It's just how you deal with it and how you perceive it and how you see it now changes, not the fact that it happened.
So tell me, if you could say something to your family members today, a message that you would want them to hear now that you've recovered, and I know it's a process, but you've really accomplished a lot in my view. What would you say to them?
You suck. No.
That would be fair.
Yeah. You guys were terrible parents and brothers. Um, I think honestly, I really appreciate the question, and I can understand where a lot of people would want to hear that answer. From my mindset, Peg, I don't know if I would say anything to them, honestly, because I don't think so. When I first confronted them about the abuse, especially my mom, her favorite saying to me was, "I did what I had to do. It doesn't matter you got hurt." Uh, so there's a certain point in time where I have to stop wishing that they would understand my side. Uh, and so that's kind of like how I've adopted that. But I can understand where people would want to hear that, and maybe they have a situation where their family member might feel contrite about what they did. They might feel some remorse or so, from what they've done. And I just know that in my personal situation, they still wouldn't care. So I don't know. I don't know. I would probably say I wouldn't say anything to them, but I do know that when I have confronted them in the past, and for anybody who's listening and thinking about doing that confrontation, you have to be in a pretty safe space to be able to do that, because the last thing you want to do is confront them, not get the reply that you want, and then go back into a self-destructive space right after that because you didn't get what you wanted. So I want to make sure that you're in a space where you are safe, you have a support group around you that can help you, support you through this, that in your head you make a plan for the negative reply, no matter how aghast you are with it, so that when you don't get what you wish for, you get what you kind of expected. You have a plan. I've seen some. I have friends that have come out as gay to their family, and in some of those situations, that was one of the most beautiful conversations you would want to have been around. You know what I mean? Like, they came out as gay. The parents were just like, "Oh yeah, no, we know." You know what I mean? Like, and then there are. Did we freeze, Peg?
Your audio is perfect, so keep going.
Okay, so and then I have friends that have had families where they kicked them out. You know what I mean? Um, and when it was that devastating of a result, invariably, and I think even they would. I'm not going to give their names. You know what I mean? But I think even they would agree that their alcoholism got worse, their drug addiction got worse, their behaviors got worse, because there was an adamant rejection of who they are within a family circle and a family union. And I'm often just amazed sometimes that people didn't have a plan for that negative response. Yes, we all want to hope that I would, go to my mom and be like, "You beat me mercilessly for 12 years, 15 years. Um, that's on you. What happened?" And her be like, "I'm sorry," and and weep and cry and be like, "I love you," and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is that's probably just not going to happen. So as much as I wish for it to be, I have to realize that's not going to happen. And I have to have a plan for when that doesn't happen, so that I take care of Brian, so that I take care of myself more so than I wish for an affirmation from them of what they did was wrong. Can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I had muted my line because there's background noise on this side. I love your answer. I've had similar conversations with my own family that where I had hoped for support and it was not forthcoming because we simply did not see things the same way. And it took me many years to understand that they genuinely did not see things the same way. Um, I mean, there was an abuser, and that from that person I got denial. So I do understand at some point you just need to let go, and it's extremely important to be prepared to know that you can handle whatever the response is, because that's something that's completely beyond our control.
Yeah, and one of the things and this may sound narcissistic in some ways, and sometimes there's a healthy amount of narcissism. And that healthy a part of narcissism is that when you go into a conversation confronting a perpetrator or somebody who has done you ill, that healthy part of narcissism is you go in with the conversation that you're going to heal yourself. And that if they can't give that to you,
Brian, your sound cut out there. So I can't hear you right now. I know you'll come back. You were saying a little bit of narcissism is healthy if it points you in the direction of self-care.
Yeah.
Maybe you could pick up from that point.
So what I'm saying is that in the confrontation or the confronting conversation, the most important person in that conversation is you. So when if you can't get that healing message from your perpetrator, I need them to still believe that I can still heal. I still have a right to heal. I still need to be the I still need to be stronger, and I don't need their affirmation to do that. So that's a little bit of healthy narcissism to help you get past your next hurdle. Remember, the confrontation is not about necessarily about entirely about what they did. It's on how you feel about what happened. And what is important is your feelings, not necessarily theirs.
Right, exactly. And it's hard to let go of that picture. For me, it was hard to let go of that picture of what I thought my family should be.
Yep.
It was hard to accept that, reality is what I have in my hands right now, and it's not within my power to restructure relationships or change another person's response. And that takes a long time. It
It does.
does.
It really does. And that's one of the reasons why I always get time machine questions and stuff.
Oh, we lost you. The audio is gone for a minute here. Brian? Brian, we can't hear you right now. Uh, okay. Brian, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. So better now?
Now you're back.
So what part did you hear up to?
That it does take a long time. I do have another question too.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so let's see, we got that one. I know it's harder for men to talk about abuse and sexual abuse in particular for the obvious reasons, the stereotype that men shouldn't be vulnerable, shouldn't have certain feelings. Is there anything that isn't so obvious that you would say to other men who have been abused?
Well, that isn't so obvious. I guess, all right, so for a lot of people, I would think that this seems like it would be obvious, but in the mentality of toxic masculinity and the way men have been brought up, what I'm about to say is really not obvious, and that is you're not alone. Um, we would all agree and think that, of course, other men are being raped. We hear the numbers, uh, but because there is such a opaque version of what happens to men, it's very easy to believe it doesn't happen. And then when you look at the advertisement for crisis centers, when you look at the advertisement for anti-sex abuse, or when you look at the survivors coming forward, very, 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 very rarely is it a male that's being presented in this form. And just as we have done with cinema and TV shows and all and music, if you're not represented, you do not feel that you're part of the system. So, like when we did the Oscars so white thing, you know what I mean? And when we started to talk about Black Lives Matter and all these kinds of stuff, it was because they're not seeing representation that looks like them. So they were constantly feeling isolated from those things. So when I see, for instance, I'll see a program put together for a retreat for sex abuse survivors, and the entire everything on the entire package of the retreat, which is supposed to be multi-gender, is all women. So I'm looking at this literature and I'm looking at these pictures, and I'm not seeing any representation of another guy on there. So what's that tell me? That this thing is not open to men, that it's only open to women. And then I think that there's a really large misconception on how to attract men into therapy. And I think that's something that really needs to be talked about.
Okay. You mean how to draw men into a career, um, the career of therapy?
Well, not so much a career of therapy, but into a career of healing, to get them to want to come forward and speak out about this. Like you'll see, like so for men, I would say this is something that's unique about for our gender, is that because of the way society has brought us up, we need to be able to wear our masks for as long as possible until we decide to take them off. And so when you're putting together, I think when you're putting together sex abuse things or when you're talking about abusive things, it needs to be allowed for men to come in with a mask. And what I mean by that is, um, so let's say I was going to hold an art retreat, okay, and I was going to teach everybody how to do stained glass. A lot of guys that I know, which is like, why would I want to do stained glass? You know, why would I want to do this? You know, that's just kind of stupid, right? But if I frame it in the fact, no, we're going to teach you how to solder. We're going to teach you how to make sure that these joints are coming together. We're going to make sure that these are clean, that you've used the flux, the aluminum, you've got a high heat, uh, um, lead melter, and we're going to do all this, and then we're going to create some stained glass kaleidoscopes, right? So
That makes perfect sense.
yeah, so what I've done is I've allowed them to have this mask of masculinity, but then also teaching them how to create beauty through it, so that they're willing to sign up because I'm teaching soldering, I'm teaching welding, I'm teaching something cool, But then when we get in, we can see that we're doing something, we're making something beautiful out of something broken. And I think that's a message that men would get, but you need to allow them to have the mask on, so that when they're out in public, they'd be like, "Oh, I'm taking a soldering class." You know what I mean? Like, and then eventually you will find that soldering class it becomes, "Oh no, I'm doing stained glass." You know what I mean? Like, but we have to allow them to decide when to take the mask off. When we do programs that don't bear that in mind, we're asking for men, especially the men that are caught in this toxic mentality, and we want to get them out of it. When we're doing that, we're not cognizant of that there is a huge, to take the mask off alone is a huge step in the healing process. And that is typically the step that most men don't want to ever take. It's easier to get into addictive behaviors. It's easier to do this or that versus actually confront the issue, because that would be questioning your masculinity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And in terms of social support, family support, people can understand, well, he's drinking a lot, he's getting high here and there. But talking about sexual abuse, that's,
yeah,
yeah,
Ooh.
that's a whole different level.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in order to get men to want to heal, we have to allow them to have their mask on for a little bit, and then teach them the next step is to remove the mask. And that's the biggest step, because not to sound too Sun Tzu or Buddhist, a journey starts with a single step, but that single step is the hardest step in the entire process, because you're coming from inertia of zero and trying to get to a projection of forward. And any scientist, any propulsion expert will tell you the most energy wasted is from the times to start, from that first step to start, to get it started until the momentum starts. And so we need to allow men that mask. We need to allow men, and then just get them stepping forward, and then then let them decide to take the mask off.
Yeah, those are great points. Thank you. So the folks in classes watching probably don't know that you are an accomplished chef. You're an author. You're an artist. You can see some of the work behind you in your room there. You're an entrepreneur. So, and I know you're humble, so you're probably not comfortable hearing that. But you survived because you had to. How did you make that leap into thriving? What got you there?
That's a really good question. I don't think out of all the interviews I've done, I don't think I've ever been asked that question. Um,
Oh, I stumped him. I'm so excited. Oh, your sound is gone. Brian, can you hear me? Because I can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
day thing, and you don't realize it becomes a day-to-day thing, and you don't realize that what you're doing is surviving. You realize that you're just trying to live every day. So I think the process of getting to Thriver was minuscule successes that I just built upon every single day. And I don't know if I would still say I'm a thriver. I don't know if that's modesty or humility, or if that's just some of the abuse coming back because I don't want to give myself credit for anything. But I still don't think I'm really a thriver yet.
Oh, Rutro, we lost you. Can you hear me? Your audio cut out. Brian, are you there? I can see you, but I can't hear you.
It's just Tuesday. It's building up off of everyday success, and then just trying to take it one step further and not expecting so much. You know what I mean? Like I wrote my book, and yeah, it would have been amazing if I was on the New York, bestsellers list in the first month. But here we are 4 years later, and I barely even sold 200 copies. You know what I mean? So like, I have to be like, well, I gotta sell 250 now. You know what I mean? So like, it's just sometimes it's just a mindset.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is that with surviving, you don't always realize that your situation is abusive and terrible. It's just Tuesday. It's just another day, and that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
But if you focus on the positive and build on all those small, maybe micro accomplishments, then eventually you get to the bigger accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, after so I was involved in a gunman on campus event in 2 years ago here in Craven County, and that sent my agoraphobia through the roof. Where I was like on lockdown for almost 5 months, and the only places I went, I knew by like the back of my hand. Like I went to the same grocery store, I went to the same rule, I went to the same teller, I went all this kind of stuff every single day because I knew I had control over those things, right? Um, but then in order to leave the house for something enjoyable, it was one step at a time. Like Jackie from last night on our thing last night for Nami, it was just going to check the mail, and then it was, okay, let me go start the car because I know I got to start the car. Let me just go to the convenience store, and grab, a bottle of water or something sweet. Um, and it just becomes like, okay, so now that I've done that, let's try going to the park and going for a walk. You know what I mean? Like, um, so it becomes these little incremental steps. And so I went from 3 years ago, almost now, being on lockdown in the house to taking the stage at colleges, talking to 400 kids. You know what I mean? So like, um, one step at a time can propel you forward.
Wow. And I know your book is up for an award, the Academy Awards for books. Why don't you tell us about that?
Uh, to be honest with you, I didn't even realize that all that had gone down. I just got this and said my book has been accepted. And I'm just like, oh, okay. um, so the first thing with the book was I got it in the Library of Congress, which I thought was really cool. The book is also, the cover is one of my paintings. So that means I also have a painting in the Library of Congress, which I think is really cool. Um, so it started there, and then the award will be cool. I mean, I am not neglectful of the award and what it would mean. But I think I told you guys last night, the greatest thing was when I got that call, when I got that message from the guy in Canada, um, who was like, I bought your book. If you can do it, I can. And then wrote his book. And what I didn't say last night, but I think is really kind of cool, is About 9 months later, Peg, I get a message from him again. He's like, "Can I have your address?" And I'm just like, "Okay, this is getting creepy." And I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "Good, because I'm sending you a copy, the first copy signed." So, so I have a copy of that book in my collection, um, with it signed, and the dedication on the dedication page. I'm not the dedication page, but it's on the dedication page, and he's very, very sweet with what he writes, and it that meant a lot. That really did. And if I got two more of those in this lifetime, screw the awards, I've won. You know what I mean? So
Wow, that is really powerful. That is really exciting. I'm glad for you, and I'm glad for him.
yeah.
And so, Brian, what you're referring to last night for folks in the classroom watching is a program we've got going on weekly. It's called Thursdays with NAMI, and we're airing every Thursday, of course, at 7 p.m. You can find us at the NAMI NC webpage, which is naminc.org. And if you'd like to see last night's program where Brian was featured, you can search for us on YouTube, NAMI NC Thursdays with NAMI YouTube, and we should pop right up. We'd love to have you check it out. It was a good show with a deep conversation, and it meant a lot to me. So we're
Agreed.
pretty much close to our half hour now. Is there anything you want to add that the students should know about?
Well, to be honest with you, I would want them to know that if you start therapy for what you've gone through, there'll be days that it'll suck. There'll be days that you don't want to get out of bed. There'll be days that um, you'll just be like, I can't do this anymore. But the one thing I always say is that if you can get through it, if you can just get up and go to that counseling session one more time, at the end of it, it's all freaking worth it. My sessions were painful. There were times I didn't even want to walk. But I do realize now it was worth it. So that's what I would say is that get help. It's worth it. No matter what you're going to go through, it's still worth it. Uh, and honestly, I don't know if you have anything set up, Peg, but I would like them to know a little bit more about NAMI, because one of the things that people get thrown around is the word paranoia, especially with mental health and everything. And you've heard me say this. It's not paranoia if at one point in time in your life it was true. That becomes a coping skill, a life skill. And so if there's people in the room feeling like, there's some paranoia or something's mentally off with them, I would like them to be able to find help. And NAMI is a great organization to be able to help them find that help, and find workshops and stuff like that that can help them. So if you have anything that you would like to say about NAMI, I think it would be great for the class.
Well, I could talk about NAMI till the cows come home, but first, is it possible for students to vote for your book if they want to help you out?
Yeah, so they can go to the authoracademyawards.com. I'm on page 9. It's The Unexpected Victim by Brian Cardoza. And you just click on that and you can vote for me. I would I would rather you not vote for me and buy the book so that I versus vote for me on a book you never read. But I can appreciate it if you just want to vote for me. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I read the book. I read it in a day, basically, one evening and one morning. It was a page turner, and I voted for you. I think I voted for you from my phone and my laptop. I wasn't sure I intended to do that, but I was checking it out. I Googled Academy Award books and The Unexpected Victim, and you're, of course, on the memoir page. So, and about NAMI, NAMI was founded by a group of mothers sitting around a kitchen table in 1979. And they all had adult sons with schizophrenia, bipolar, very serious diagnoses that are hard to live with. And at that time, there were so few medications. There was Thorazine, there was Valium, really heavy meds that were hard to take and function and have a normal life with. So these mothers realized how empowering and helpful it was just to sit around the table and talk to people who've been there. They were not clinicians, they were just loved ones. And they started doing support groups, and it spread like wildfire. So they were in Madison, Wisconsin, and within 3 years they said, well, let's have a little conference. We'll get maybe 30, 40 people. And they got 300. It's just grown since then. Again, our main thing is support groups, free classes, presentations. We also do a lot of advocacy. We push for adequate funding for mental health services and anti-stigma work. We were big when health insurance parity was the big issue of the day. NAMI took a lead role in that. So I would love to hear from you. We would love to start a NAMI in the New Bern area or any much of the east side of the state. We're a little thin with NAMI. We've got some things going on in Wilmington and Pitt County and some things in the northeastern bit, but I'd love to hear from you. Also, we have a helpline. Our helpline manager, Virginia, can answer your questions. We're open weekdays and she'll steer you to the right resources. She'll listen to what's going on with you. So it's warm support, and that number is 800-451-9682. Again, that's 800-451-9682. And I'll put up a screen at the end that will have that number as well. Is there anything you want to add, Brian?
Get better, because you guys deserve it.
That's right. That's right. Know that you're worth it.
Yep.
So I think with that, we'll wrap it up. I'm going to share the screen. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for your, okay, I'm going to say your courage. And thank you for sharing your story. And thanks for the opportunity to do this. Best of luck to all of you in the classrooms. And now I'm going to show you our, what am I going to show you? I have to confess, I didn't pull up the file in advance, so I'm having trouble finding it. All right, actually, I think that's going to be it.
Okay.
I'll read the number one more time since I don't have that NAMI file that I can put up for you to look at. 800-451-9682. We're open from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. We'd love to hear from you. And I think that's it. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, Brian.
Bye.